Hey, what's going on, Warriors? It's Guru Joe, and I'm back for the third and final installment on basic boxing punching, glove sports compared to Jeet Kune Do and Filipino Kali, along with Wing Chun. Okay, and that's just because in Jeet Kune Do, under Guru Dan and Asano, those are all under the same umbrella. You can't really separate Wing Chun from Jeet Kune Do. You can't really separate Filipino Kali, although people would argue with you that they're two different things. The way I came up, they were always blended. And that's really what Jeet Kune Do is. It's a personal style. And so I never got to train with the guy. I'm not that old. But Bruce Lee's personal style included Wing Chun, Western boxing, and kickboxing. And he drew from influences such as French Savate, Boxe Française Savate, and from Muay Thai. And he was always constantly incorporating things. He was interested in Indonesian silat, which is a type of grappling, and he was interested in Filipino Kali, which Guru Asano was doing already at the time. Guru Asano was a little bit older, so by 1959, that's 4, 5, 6 years before he would meet Bruce Lee at the Long Beach tournament in California, that he was already a Kali instructor. And so what Jeet Kune Do teaches us is much like modern MMA today. It's that you're going to integrate things into your own personal system. So you might take a class in Muay Thai. You might take a class in Savate. You might go across town, take a class in MMA where you do stand-up, clinch, and ground. You might go to another gym and you might do pure Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Well, when you're in the ring or you're out on the street, there's nothing that says you can't draw from all those things and put them all together. But believe it or not, back in the 60s, and actually, honest truth, back in the early 2000s, I had several instructors that were still like, whoa, 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 you don't do that. There were gyms I went to, if you did karate and you wanted to do taekwondo, they would not let you in the gym, or they'd say, hey, you got to quit what you're doing over there. The one exception was the boxing club. The boxing club, you couldn't practice things there, but they didn't care if you went and did kickboxing here and you did grappling there. They were just included. But even when I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they would not want you to go across town and do strikings, or you better just not talk about it. So those things were prevalent. Now everything is sort of being steered towards universal movement. But we still have to consider two things. We got to consider the rules, and we got to consider the tools that are available. What are we going to deploy? So in the glove, things are slightly different, and they're tremendously different when you're doing it for a sport and you're wearing tape and gauze and you have a really well put together hand wrap, whether it's for MMA, for Muay Thai, or for boxing. They all use a hand wrap. It might be varied slightly different, particularly for MMA, because you have to fit it in the smaller glove and you have to keep an open palm where none of the gauze can be showing. Back in the early days, sometimes they didn't do that. People would grab the gauze as sort of a handle and be able to hit the person. So now you'll see it's a clear palm. But even with that cut out, when you're wearing that, you just feel like you can punch through a wall. Your hand feels so sturdy, which is different when you're barehanded, especially if you don't practice hitting the bag barehanded. So we're going to talk about the hook and the uppercut today. And the principle is still the same. I want to hit with the pointer knuckle, and I want to hit with the middle knuckle. What's known as a boxer's fracture is when you miss and you hit the little finger. Because the bones are so small and they sort of stop here at the wrist, they're not reinforced like these two bones sort of line up with the radius and ulna in the forearm. And your little finger's just weak. I mean, you're not going to wrestle somebody with your little finger. You're going to use the main grip when you're grabbing something. So we just know that this is a little bit weaker, but you'll see that boxer fracture from time to time. And it can even happen in a glove. I had a pro fighter here at the gym teaching and training with us for a long time. And he was just a sparring session. And his partner ducked, and in the glove, he hit him, but he ended up hitting the back of the head, and he broke the little finger and then the top of the hand here. So whether we're bare knuckle or in the glove, that principle is going to be the same. Pointer knuckle and middle knuckle. Now on the hook, I've got to cover some various ranges. We can talk about it a little bit with the uppercut too, but the hook has a little more variety in it. So traditionally, when you throw a hook, if you can touch your middle knuckle and your pointer knuckle as far out as you can extend, keeping those knuckles together, that will set your middle range hook. And that just means if I have good follow through on a cross, I should be close enough to fire the middle range hook. Because remember, the cross should go 4 to 6 inches behind the head, but the hook is going to target the chin to try to turn the chin. Okay, and the hook is really valid for street self-defense because our target's a little bit different. Since it's hitting laterally from the side, you don't have as much consideration to make as you do with the jab and the cross. If you watch those videos that I produced earlier, with the jab and the cross, you don't want to aim at the teeth or mouth when you're bare knuckle because you're going to run into bones, right? The bones of the teeth and the point of the chin. We talked about hitting the soft tissue of the cheeks. But with the hook, it's a little bit different. You're not going to put your hand as much risk hitting from the side, and the hook has tremendous knockout power. And don't worry, if you don't have one-punch knockout power, that's what combinations are for, because your hook is going to turn the head one way. And then as it comes back, you're going to hit it with your right straight. It's going to turn the head the other way. And that volume and trauma of whipping back and forth, that creates knockouts too. So you'll find combination fighters like Terrence Bud Crawford, who's an exceptional knockout artist, using combinations. If you had a third axis, the uppercut, now we're also hitting the head this way, so the head is lifted, and that pinches a different nerve in the base of the neck. So again, that accumulation of trauma, up, sideways, back again this way, that will lead to knockouts very, very rapidly. But when you don't have a glove on or the glove is smaller, the knockouts come quicker. That's why you see it a lot more often in MMA, particularly in amateur MMA when they don't understand the risk. You can take just a couple jabs and you feel really buzzed on your feet. That person might go down. It'll have a major impact. In fact, when I have amateur fighters, their first fight, my first goal for them is just to go out there, use their jab, maybe throw a 1-2, maybe throw a leg kick, but really focus on that jab in round 1, and then in 2 and 3, we move on to a game plan that we can assess from whatever's going on in the ring. The jab, especially bare knuckle, is very powerful because the glove is so small or there's no glove at all. So on the hook, that's the same principle. So I want to just bend. So the other thing to consider with the hook and the uppercut too is they're punches that require a setup. So the setup could be body movement. Maybe I dodge a right cross or a jab, and now I'm set up to throw the hook. Or I throw my own cross, and now I've already pivoted. I've already dropped over here, so now I can throw the hook. Okay, let's talk about the uppercut real quick. Going to be the same. So if we go back to our middle range measurement, if I turn this to an uppercut, you can see that it's an identical position. And so on the bag, it should be diagonal in delivery. Okay, because if I'm using that range, my shoulder's going to cover my jaw, my chin is down. Same when I throw the hook, shoulder's going to cover the jaw, and the chin should be down. The tendency is to try to throw the uppercut extremely vertical. Now, if we take that measurement from the bag, the only way to get it vertical is to really lower my hand. And there's no target on the bag for me to hit. The bottom of the chin can be the target, but I'm still going to hit that diagonally. The only time you go vertical is when we're in very close to what we call bump range. And now the uppercut can hit the chin, and I'm not exposing myself. So just watch a boxing match the next time you have an opportunity and try to notice where the uppercuts and the hooks come from. Was there any preparatory movement that happened? Like I might jab and pull my right shoulder back, and then I might come in with the uppercut. Or I might hook, and then I might come in with the uppercut. Or I might throw a straight right. Just like the hook, I've dipped, I've turned a little bit, and now I can come back with the uppercut. So these are a little more educated punches. Now let's switch over and talk a little bit about Jeet Kune Do, Filipino Kali, and other applications for street self-defense. So just like the other punches, we can change with open hands. So we talked a lot about the finger jab. Now with the hook, the finger jab is going to be a little bit different. So when you throw a hook, I'm going to use my right side so you can see it. I might slap, and slapping does two things. One, it protects your hand. You're less likely to get injured by making a closed fist. My target might be here, but remember my story about the boxer. If they duck and I hit bone, the back of the head, maybe I'm aiming at the body and I hit their elbow, that could break my hand. Maybe you just hit them man, I didn't know you were wearing a giant belt buckle, and now I've hurt my hand on that. So slapping can be great. Another way to use the slap is to aim at the ear to try to cup the air. It sounds silly, it sounds like a gimmick, but if you've ever been hit with it in boxing with a big 14-ounce glove on or even a 10-ounce glove, it'll work the same. You hit the ear with the glove and that air will go in, and it can really do damage to the eardrum. It can mess up your equilibrium. It hurts, I can tell you that, because I've had it done to me. But with the slap, it's much easier to aim at the ear. The other thing that we'll look at in Filipino Kali is what we call shearing hits or hits with the forearm. So with a jab, I might buzz the collarbone. People think you miss, but you're really just trying to shove them with the forearm. The slap can be the same way. It can be a hammer fist like this, or it can be a reverse hook where we turn our hand down. Like in the glove, you might hit with the knuckle this way, but on the street or in JKD, you might do more of a clothesline. Now you think the target is the neck's good for moving people around, but actually what we don't do in the boxing glove, aiming at the temple or aiming right behind the ear with the forearm is a good way to create percussion and get more knockout power out of the forearm hit too. So we have slapping, we have forearm hits. Let's talk about the eye gouge. It's not going to be the same delivery system. So sometimes when you throw the slap, you'll extend your thumb this way. And now imagine if I have my guard up here and a slap comes in. What you think about doing is after the collision, you put the thumb in the eye. It's pretty much same time. But I can also monitor that hand to prevent it from firing and still get the thumb in the eye, maybe scoop the hand down, and then fire. So because we have dexterity with our hands, we have other opportunities. The other thing that I like to do is to think about a jab cross hook. When you throw the hook, a lot of times people, they're covering with their hands. So it looks like a hook, but I will grab the front hand and clear it so I can fire the right. That's another JKD principle. Okay, the uppercut, that's going to function largely the same. On the straight punch videos where we talked about the Jeek Chung Choi, that could be more 45. Okay, it's for close proximity when people are trying to hold you. Imagine I'm clinching somebody by the head. You might try to deliver that 45 right to the base of the jaw into the throat. That's apparently when Bruce Lee would do the Pak Sao, sometimes he would try to deliver it on this 45-degree angle rather than straight, because straight it's a little easier to block, and again, you're running into the chin. The other really good use for it, sometimes you get somebody who's sort of like a Joe Frazier. Okay, and that means they have a lot of head movement. Like if you remember Joe Frazier, it was like nonstop ab work. That guy was ducking and moving and making what we call a Z-weave. That means the head's sort of on a swivel. That person can be very hard to hit, and it looks stupid, but in boxing, you can't hit to the back of the head as far as the sport goes. And sometimes even when you try, it becomes a glancing blow. And then you might hit him in the back of the head too, so you're really just punishing yourself. So if you look at Joe Frazier, you're like, man, it's hard to hit. But if you've ever had somebody duck down with that bob and weave, you'll find yourself like, man, I cannot hit the target. So I'm going to use this lower arm to sort of simulate that. So sometimes when somebody is ducking, what you want to do is stop the movement. So first thing I'm going to do is just stop the movement with a forearm to the back of the head. And then I'm going to do an uppercut, but not really. I'm just going to form a cup out of my hand. And the goal is either the chin or the throat. And you just want to lift the person back up so they're head level so you can fire again. But you might need to put in a combination. Like I might go cross, lift, cross. Or low cross, lift, cross, right? See, the head is down. I realize I missed. I pick up the head, and then I hit. And that's more of a Kali influence to sort of stop the hitting and go more into manipulating with the hands. Same thing when we feed a hook. I might slap to get them to block, and then I might move the guard with my hand and then fire again that way. And it's just because of the dexterity in the fingertips. And you can just do so much that's rapid fire with it. Like I talked about clearing with the finger jab. Sometimes that will turn into just creating pressure right away, because unlike a punch, you don't have to create snap. So it doesn't necessarily have to withdraw. It just has to land in the eye and then turn into something else. Okay, so that covers it. So the jab, the cross, the hook, and the uppercut. Those are 4 main punches found in Western boxing. There's some variants. There's a diagonal uppercut. There's a lead and rear overhand punch. But those are sort of outside the fundamentals of boxing. When you come into the boxing gym for the first time, usually they're going to show you the jab first, the cross, and the hook. And people will call that ABC. Hey, let me see your ABC or your 1, 2, 3. They're commonly referring to jab, cross, hook. And there's so much variety there. You know, just elevation changes. Jab, cross, hook to the body. Jab, cross to the body. Hook to the head. Then you add in the uppercut. That's another line. And it's honestly, it's pretty advanced. Most people, if you watch them, they really load the uppercut. We talked about avoiding that by turning. And in the Wing Chun too, right? When I use the Tan Sao, I don't want to lower my hand and come up. I just want to go from my guard position to the Tan Sao and be able to fire it from there. So the fundamentals don't change, but what does? The rules and the tools that are available. And that's what's going to dictate street self-defense and what we can put under the umbrella of Jeet Kune Do and Kali versus what's going to be under strict sport arsenal like boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, MMA. MMA, as sort of ruthless as it can be at times, some people call it barbaric, it's still a sport. There's a ton of rules these days. There's a lot of safety involved. Think about how quick they stop the ground and pound for a knockout these days. It's out of safety. Sometimes, you know, we'll be shouting at the TV together, right? Like, well, they stopped that one too early, but it's a safety protocol. We're back in the early 90s. They didn't have that. Those punches might continue. And in the parking lot, there's nobody there to call timeout or pull you off. So you need to have advantages on your side. And that's why you want to have a bigger arsenal when it comes to self-defense. You want to have a better variety of tools and understanding. And you want to train on a variety of equipment, variety of partners, variety of apparatus, because if you don't bring out those qualities, you're not going to do it in a self-defense situation. And let me put this caution to the side for the last thing, and then we'll wrap this up. There's nothing wrong with doing boxing as self-defense. A good boxer, a good kickboxer, has an excellent shot at defending themselves. If they've gone on to competition, even better. They're going to be very, very capable almost 99% of the time when it comes to self-defense. But there's always areas that we're all weak in, whether it's grappling, striking, kicking, footwork. There's always something to consider. What about long range? The blade, somebody might draw a pocket knife that you don't see. Somebody might have a firearm. And so the more tools that you can bring to bear for your own survival, just like putting a survival kit together, the better off you're going to be. And that's the perspective that Kali and Jeet Kune Do takes, is we're not fighting for sport or a contest for pride or to make money. We're fighting to get home. So that's why you'll see things like finger jab, pulling the hair, the headbutt, right? Maybe grabbing the ear, right? I told you about cupping the ear and putting the air into the eardrum, those kinds of things. Obviously, Jeet Kune Do is known for kicking to the groin, something that is now illegal in Muay Thai and it's illegal in MMA. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I feel like I lectured through a lot of these segments, but we really broke down those 4 key punches over this series. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope the differences and contrast between glove fighting and street self-defense were broken down a little bit. This is River City Warriors. We'll catch you later. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the channel and the content. Thanks again. Take care.